Like I say, Cody's right down the street. He should be here in just a minute. I really appreciate you showing up this morning. And I'm glad we didn't do it yesterday morning. We would have had to wear our snorkel jackets. What we're going to cover this morning are kind of the nuts and bolts of high power shooting. There are, and you remember me telling you, some of you during our small bore training, that this made me, this helped me pay attention to the details. You know, this is very detail-oriented stuff, high power shooting. And the winners and the people who get points and the people who are successful, we're all successful because we enjoy doing it, of course. But the people who generally end up on the top tier, the top 10% of the shooters, are the ones who make the least amount of mistakes, the ones who are able to put everything together. And Rush Salmons came here today from Augusta to help us do that. He has been shooting high power for a long time, and he is the past president of the Palmetto State Marksman Association. He was a nuclear engineer during a former life, and sometimes they have to pay attention to details, or we all glow in the dark. So he agreed to come up here and visit with us. I brought you some things to write on because I would like for you to take notes. This at times may seem like dry stuff, but when you remember when you got here and we shot the match 2 weeks ago, you were saying, you know, well, I wonder if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing right now, or, you know, this will kind of give you an idea of how to get ready to shoot a match. What you should be, not only what you should be doing to get your things and your equipment ready, but the things you should be thinking about before the match. Because about 90% of this game is mental. I don't know if I just threw out too much information there, but seriously, there is a huge mental aspect to this game, and if you can have all the greatest equipment in the world and you can do everything properly, but if your mind is not in it, just like a lot of other things in life, if your mind is not on the game, and your scores will follow. So I would like to have Rush take over now and pay attention to the things he brought his whiteboard in today. So, Rush?
Hi, thanks for coming. My name is Rush Salmons. We're going to have class in here this morning, and we'll be in here for most of the morning. And then when we go to the range, we'll have range time. We'll also do some demonstrations out there, and we'll have Blake. He'll be working with us. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself, Blake.
Well, my name's Blake Mackeson. I've been off and on shooting now for probably close to 10 years. Shot at the state level, national level, all that good stuff. Feel like I did kind of pick up the game and hit the ground running. You know, really felt like I had good positions and was fairly successful at it. So if you guys got any questions about positions or the mental side of anything too, that was always a big thing that I worked hard on, was preparation and mental aspects and that kind of stuff. So,
Blake seemed to pick it up real fast. And Jerry?
Hey, good morning. My name is Jerry Chapman. I've been shooting Highpower about 5 years or so, I guess. Don't let Blake sell himself short. If he ever shows up at a match, everybody else is shooting for second place. So he is that good of a shooter. But yeah, like I said, I'll try to help you out as I can when we get on the range. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Heck, I've still got them that I need to be asking too. So I'll do what I can to help. So thank you.
And one more. What year did you make the President's 100, Blake? The first year I went to Paris?
The first 2010, 2007, 8, 9. I think I missed it in 10 and then again in 11, something like
Blake is also distinguished now. He's on the Distinguished Rifleman Badge list.
You can pass these out to the students. Salmons. I've been shooting Highpower for about 10 or 15 years. I'm also a rifle instructor. I just finished teaching 10 classes last month. Went out to New Mexico for 2 or 3 weeks and taught about 10 classes. I'm also a level 3 rifle coach. There's only about 100 of those coaches in the country. The next higher level are the people who teach at the Olympic Training Center. There's only 6 of those coaches. When I was younger, I shot bullseye pistol. I shot in college for 4 years, and then I competed with pistol for several years after that. But also an engineer, pretty particular and pretty involved with doing things correctly and methodically. And what I've laid out today is what I think is a good method of teaching you the basics of rifle shooting. What I'd like to do is for you students to go through and introduce yourself, tell me a little bit about your school and your shooting experience. So, the schedule for what we're going to do in class today, not to try to follow the schedule, maybe I don't always, but we'll kind of go by this. Who knows the primary 3 safety rules of handling firearms? Give me one.
Muzzle down the range.
I'm sorry?
Keep muzzle down the range.
Keep
at the target.
Actually keep them pointed in a safe direction. You're real. That's about right. But you know sometimes we're not on the range, so make sure they're in a safe direction. Okay. What's the second rule? And you guys need to speak up because not only do I don't hear it well, but the people in the class don't necessarily hear what you're saying. What's your second rule?
Keep your finger off the trigger until
Keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Correct. Now I like to say keep it straight and off the trigger. See, this rifle is unloaded, so it's safe. Up is generally considered a safe direction. My finger off the trigger,
Yes.
finger on the trigger.
Yes.
How much difference is there in your hand position? Not a whole lot. If you keep it straight and then move it, that's moving your finger a lot, so that's a lot. There's difference in human. One of the things I did when I was at work was human performance and human factors. If you train your hand to be straight and off the trigger, it's a whole lot easier to keep it off the trigger. If you get into the habit of picking it up like this, it's easy to put your finger there, and then also you have to reposition your hand to shoot. So if you keep it straight and off the trigger. So that's kind of my little pet peeve about trigger. Okay, what's the third one? Okay, keep it pointed in a safe direction, keep your finger off trigger. There's another one.
Make sure your yellow safety flag's in and your guns are loaded.
Right, unload it. Don't load the rifle until you're ready to shoot. That applies to all firearms. Any questions about those? There's also a lot of other rules that I call them common sense rules, like you shouldn't take drugs or drink alcohol, or prescription medicine. If you're on some kind of medicine that causes you to be sleepy or something, or if they say if you take medicine that you shouldn't drive a car, you shouldn't take that and shoot. But talk to your parents or talk to your doctor to find out what kind of prescription medicine you can and can't take while you're shooting. Also, store your ammunition and rifles in a place separate, keep them separate when you're storing them, and also where people that aren't authorized to use them can't get them. So keep them locked up, keep them stored away from ammunition. Also, when you go to a range, there's a lot of rules for using the range. And each range has some general rules that apply everywhere, and some have some specific rules. Like primary rule that everybody has is follow all range commands. What does that mean?
Follow what the range instructor tells you.
Stephanie, what does that mean? When you're on the range shooting. When I say you should follow all commands, what does that mean? If somebody says cease fire, then you stop shooting. Would you load before you're told to load? Okay. Okay, stuff like that. Is there any, do you have any range command or range rules here that we should know before we go out to the range?
No, that covers, you know, that covers about everything we have, the other, you know, some of the other things, you know, more bolt action rifle, which, you know, move or open your actions.
Keep your ECI in place.
Correct,
Well,
yeah.
go ahead.
I know that one thing I read in the newsletter from the Development Gun Club every time it comes out is when you're shooting, use targets that ensure that your bullets go into the burn. Because there are, you know, in most ranges nowadays, there are buildings on the other side of the range. They're just hopefully, you know, far enough away. You hear the term safety fan sometimes. They're outside of the safety fan, but they want you not to shoot at cans on the ground, things that will cause the bullet to ricochet and leave the range. That's one of the specific rules I see here all the time. Make sure your bullets impact the burn. Is that the kind of thing you do?
Yeah. Also, don't handle your rifle when someone's downrange, work, you know, hanging targets or moving targets around or something like that. Okay. Somebody says cease fire. What does that mean?
Stop shooting.
Stop shooting. What's it mean?
You get your magazine off, probably.
Stop shooting. Finger off the trigger. Stop shooting. What's it mean if you hear cease fire?
Stop shooting.
Stop shooting. Who can call a ceasefire?
Anyone.
Anyone. Why would you call a ceasefire?
And malfunction happens, so.
No.
Someone goes downrange.
Why would you call us? Why would you tell everybody to stop shooting?
Oh, in case there's something where someone or something could be in danger.
An unsafe condition at the range. There could be a dog ran across in front of the targets, or somebody walked down range and didn't realize you were still shooting. And who can call a ceasefire? Anyone. Okay. And when should you call a ceasefire?
Whenever something goes wrong.
Whenever you see a condition where you shouldn't be shooting. That's pretty straightforward, right? And we encourage you to call a ceasefire. If you call a ceasefire, we'll stop shooting, and then we'll go over and talk to you, see what's going on, and then we'll resolve that issue. Okay, good. Okay, any questions about range rules and safety? I'm a real big component of dry firing. Who knows what dry firing is? What's dry firing?
It's like firing without a bullet in the chamber. So it's like pulling the trigger and everything happening without a
Okay,
bullet.
so you're doing everything you're going to do to fire a rifle except putting ammunition in the gun. So that so it would basically be safe to do that off the range. And that's a very good way to practice your positions, practice the shooting skills, and develop skills without shooting ammo, without going to the range. And a very, very important aspect of dry firing is making sure you don't have ammunition around you when you're dry firing. I dry fire at home all the time. I practice probably 5 days a week. But I don't have, ammunition doesn't come into play. There's no ammunition in the room where I'm dry firing. And I encourage you and stress that if you dry fire at home, and I encourage you to dry fire at home, to make sure there's no ammunition anywhere around you or the gun. Any questions about that? And do it where you're also following the other rules as well as possible, where you're not pointing in an unsafe direction. But if you're in your house and you know the gun's empty and you've got a blank wall behind you and there's nobody on the other side of the wall, it's pretty safe to dry fire there. But I stress it's got to be without ammunition. Make sure you verify that there's no ammo in the gun before you start dry firing. Any questions about that? Like I say, I dry fire my position. I get all my gear out. put it all on, and I'll sit in the dining room, or I'll stand in the dining room, or I'll lay in the dining room, and I'll practice dry firing for half hour at a time. And that's what it takes to get to be better. Okay. Okay, next subject we're going to talk about is goals and goal setting. Who's got goals for school? What's your goal in school?
Always.
Always. Is that a short-term goal or a long-term goal?
I just, always.
Always? Okay. What's going to happen once you get all A's? What's the next step?
It'll help me go to like a better college and.
Okay, so your longer-term goal is to go to college and pursue goals there. Good, real good. Okay, you're looking down. You have goals?
Not
Do
really.
you know what they are? Okay.
Maintain a 3.0 GPA,
3.0 GPA. Short-term goal, long-term goal?
short term, just keep the scholarships, keep them
Okay.
to college. They're trying to raise it up.
Okay. Anybody else? Who has goals for shooting?
Cody, what's your goal?
My goal, get to college, have a job, be successful in life.
Okay. Okay, goals are a way of organizing what you're trying to do. And believe me, this is going to be the most valuable thing I'm going to talk about today. If I'd known about this when I was your age, I could have been an Olympic grade shooter. I could have been rich and famous, or I could have gotten a college degree, or whatever. It's a way of planning what you're doing and how to reach a certain goal. I don't know how else to say it, but how to achieve something that you want to achieve. And I would recommend people have goals for, well, you're in school, so I'd say goals for school. What do you want to do in school now? Would be a short-term goal like all A's or 3.5 GPA. That'd be a short-term goal. And then a medium-term goal may be graduating with an overall GPA average and enabling you to get into a college of your choice. And then maybe a long-term goal would be to finish college and get the degree that you want. Questions about that? Okay, so for you, school, work would be another for us older guys that are out of school and got a job. I usually try to have about 5 different goals for me for different aspects of my life. Shooting is always a goal. My health and fitness is always a goal. My finances and money is always a goal. And then family and social life is actually a goal of mine. Okay. So, how do you develop a goal? First of all, you have to identify what you want. Okay, that's the first part. That's fairly easy. Maintain a 3.5 GPA. And then you go through and identify everything that's keeping you from reaching that goal, that 3.5 GPA average. And that could be a lot of different things. You're not studying enough, you're having trouble with a subject, or you have to maybe work. But anyhow, you identify all the things you have to do to achieve it, and then you go through and you list everything that is keeping you right now from doing that. And then you come up with a method of improving that. That's getting kind of confusing. Okay, so identify the goal. Let's say you want to, let's go back to shooting. Offhand is hard with one of your challenges. So let's say your goal is to be able to shoot a 90 offhand. So some of the challenges to being able to do that is you have to improve your hold, you have to improve your sight picture and your trigger control. And then you say, well, to improve your hold, what you do is you would dry fire standing every day for half an hour. And then you would implement that and put that into practice and start practicing every day for half an hour until you could hold it better. And then when you maybe do that for a couple of months and see how you're implementing that, then you would come back and reevaluate what you need to do to improve that. Okay. Any questions on that? That's kind of confusing, I guess. And you should also have them written down. Write down your goal, write down your plan for reaching the goal, and then come back occasionally and reevaluate how you're doing and change your plan so that you'll be able to more easily reach the goal. Okay, questions on that? There's books you can find that probably explain it a whole lot better than I have. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is the actual shot process. This is number 4 on the list. As soon as I printed this, I found out I might have to change the order. But the shot process, there are 5 aspects to firing a shot: hold, control, aiming, breathing, trigger control, and follow through. Okay, what's hold control? Being able to, so say you're standing, be able to stand up and hold the rifle on the target. Okay. Then what would be the breathing control?
Controlling your breathing.
Okay. What do you do before you break the shot? What do you do?
Exhale.
Exhale. You stop breathing. Used to, when I was learning how to shoot, they'd say, take a deep breath, let half of it out, and stop and hold your breath. But basically, the easiest thing to work is just breathe naturally, and then when you start to pull the trigger, just stop breathing. Typically, it's on an exhale, and it's typically after you've taken a breath. So the breathing phase is just stop breathing. Then the next phase would be trigger control. What's trigger control? Go ahead.
Don't jerk the trigger, like squeeze it slowly.
It's to be able to pull the trigger to make the gun go off without moving it. You know, squeezing the trigger, typically what people say. Then there's sight picture, aiming. Aiming consists of 2 different parts. Sight alignment, since we're shooting iron sights and service rifles. Sight alignment, what's sight alignment?
Making sure that you can see straight to the target.
Okay. Sight alignment is talking about the sights on the rifle itself. You've got the back sight and you've got the front sight. How should they be aligned? Put the top of the front and the center of the aperture in the rear. Okay. What's the next part of aiming? Go ahead.
No, you have to focus on the front sight.
Yeah, that's part of the sighting process, and that's very, very important. What do you do once you get your sights aligned? Where do you put them?
On the target.
On the target. So the next part would be sight picture. And there's a lot of different talks about sight picture and what your sight picture should look like. What are the couple of different philosophies on that? Anybody know?
Should be clear.
Okay.
Shouldn't be really blank.
6 o'clock hold versus center of mass. Have you ever heard that? Okay. Where do you put, okay. I'm not an artist, but here's your front sight, and then you've got your aperture. Where would you put the target in relation to that front sight?
You should put it like right on top of the front sight.
Right on top of the front sight, I put the black right here.
Well, like a little bit lower than that, but yeah.
Okay, so leave a little gap. Okay, that's one philosophy. Another is, well, kind of like that is what you're talking about?
Oh no, I meant like pretty much making a lollipop is what I was told.
Well, that's kind of what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
there.
You got it right on top of it.
Sort of like that?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's called the 6 o'clock hold. Another is where you have the target, and you put the front sight in the middle of the target. That's called the center of mass hold. But anyhow, sight alignment and then sight picture. So you get the sights aligned on the rifle, then you put that front sight on the target where you want it. That's here's your target. And then you put your front sight here, and then that'll all be circled by the rear aperture. Okay. And this is the target, and this would be the rear sight. But anyhow, sight alignment, and then you put the sight picture, the front sight on the target. Then the next part would be trigger control. And that's pulling the trigger and make the gun go off without moving the sights. And then follow through. Who knows what follow through is?
Keeping the trigger to hold down after you shoot and keep you on sight on target.
Right. Keep everything the same as when you pull the trigger until a short time after you pull the trigger, so that the gun keeps pointing to the target until after it goes off. And the real challenge is you have to do all those things at once. You have to have hold control, you have to have sight alignment, sight picture, you have to have trigger control and breathing all at the same time that the gun goes off. Then follow through after it goes off. And everything we talk about today, everything we go through today is to try to get you to be able to do that better. Like Bob was talking about, there's a lot of things during the day, during the match, finding the right firing point, having all your equipment laid out, all that other stuff is important, but nothing really matters except this shot process and be able to break a good shot. Position doesn't matter if you can't do this part also. And this is 2 or 3 seconds out of the firing the shot. Out of that phase, there's only 2 or 3 seconds that you're doing all this together. And it all comes down to that 2 or 3 seconds at a time. Questions? So you're getting the position and getting your ammo laid out and getting on target, all that helps you and gets you ready for that shot process where you actually aim at the target and pull the trigger. And unless you do that, you can do everything else right. And if you don't do all these steps correctly and at the same time, none of the other stuff matters. So you've got to break a good shot. Questions on that? Okay, now we're going to go back to item number 3, the mental aspects of shooting. The shot process, just like we just went through, there's several things you have to go through and do at the same time. What I like to do, is, especially standing, is I try to, everybody knows how computers work. You do the same thing over and over and you get the same results. If you think the same on every shot and think the same process, you get the same results. So if you shoot a good shot, if you go through your mind and do everything the same, you should get another good shot. And if you go through your mind and do everything again, you should get another good shot. So when I'm shooting, as soon as I start to shoot and I'll put the round of ammunition in the gun, my brain starts thinking the same thing. And it's to get me to do that shot process correctly. First thing I'll do, I'll think about the position, say I'm standing, I'll stand in my position, I'll load the rifle, I'll hold it, and then I'll start thinking, well, I need to breathe, I need to, actually, the first thing I start thinking about is the aiming process. I'll get my sights aligned, then I'll get my sights aimed at the target. Then I'll start thinking about trigger control and follow through. And then once I get through the trigger control and it goes off, then I'll follow through. But I always think about the same thing. I don't think, well, the last shot was a bad shot, I need to do better, I need to do this, I need to do that. I start thinking just the very basics. Position, hold the rifle, hold it steady, then go through the shot process, the sight alignment, sight picture, then squeeze the trigger and follow through. Also, I verify I'm on the right target, and that's been a problem here lately. When you go to big matches, there'll be targets side by side, up to hundreds of them, maybe just a few of them. And if you shoot at the wrong target, even if you shoot a good shot and do everything perfectly, if it's on the wrong target, it's still a miss. So one of the things I do is verify which target I'm on in the process before I go through. Questions on that?
Would you mark your target somewhere where you know it's your target or not?
There's a big number written, there's a 6 foot tall number written right below it. And it says like number 14 or number 97, and you know you're shooting your target 97. You can write it on your hand and you look down there and you see 97. But you can get so locked in to doing the stuff here, doing the sight picture and sight alignment that you can forget and get on the wrong target. Yeah, I've done that a couple times here lately. Good question though. Also, after I break the shot, after it goes off, I'll start, first of all, call the shot. Who knows what calling the shot means? That's good. What?
Tell where your shot landed on target.
Okay, tell us where your shot lands on target. How close can you call your shot? Yes.
Personally?
Yeah. In the black, out of the black?
Yeah.
Left, right?
Yeah.
High, low?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. So in or out of the black, high or low. That's good. That's good. What if it's, okay. Everybody else? How much shooting experience you have again? Not much? Okay.
Not in high power.
Not. What about small bore?
I've been doing small bore since last December.
Okay. How close can you call your shots?
Pretty close.
Pretty close. Inside, outside the black? 8 ring, 9 ring? Okay. Good. That's real good. What about you?
Usually dead on,
You can call them dead on?
usually,
Okay.
about 90% of the time.
Okay. How close? At the scoring ring, like a wide 9 or a tight 9?
Now when it comes down to the actual point values,
Yeah.
there's occasionally a little bit of difficulty there, but sometimes.
Okay. Good. Being able to call your shots is good for a couple different aspects. First of all, it tells you that you're paying attention to the shot process and where the sight picture is when the gun goes off. So that it's telling you you're doing a lot of things right. The better that, and it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice. But being able to call your shots is good. Once you call your shot, what I have started doing is I grade myself on how well that shot was. Was it, yeah, that was a great shot? It was okay. And then, I won't say what I normally say, but it needs improvement. Okay, and then once I figure out, yeah, that's a great shot, I try to remember, yeah, I did everything right, good. I'm not going to change anything, I'm going to do it again. If it's one of those, it needs improvement, I'm going to think, what should I have done on that shot to make it better? Go ahead.
Is it another thing to focus on the shot that you're on at the moment instead of thinking about the next shot or the shot after?
Yes, that's exactly right. You only shoot one shot at a time, and no matter how many shots you've done before, how many you've got to go, you only worry about that one shot and executing that one shot. That also goes back to your mind process. When I load the round in the rifle, I start the same mental process. I don't think about yesterday, I don't think about the shot before, I don't think about cross-firing just before. I concentrate on doing the basics for that one shot. Good, that's real good. But once you do break that shot, grade yourself on how well you shot it. Tell yourself where it went, as close as you can. If you can say it's left and high, that's good. That's good enough. That's good. You can be better. A friend of mine could say that was a 2 o'clock tight 10. That was a wide 10 at 4. I can't. But he can. Some of the good shooters. Blake can probably do that. Yeah. But call your shot and then grade yourself on how well the shot went, and then think to yourself what you should do to make it better. And that only takes a couple of seconds. Don't spend, 5 minutes thinking, it should be 2 or 3 seconds, just a few seconds. Just reflect on what you did. Did you go through the same mental process while you were shooting? And the mental process is as important as the physical process. Everybody believe that? Everybody don't believe that? Who gets straight A's in school? Okay. Does your parents tell you you're a good student and you're smart and you study, you need to study and you're doing real well in school, or do they say, well, that's not good enough, you need to work harder?
It depends.
Or you're stupid? The way you think affects how well you can do and what the outcome will be. Okay, so the process of shooting. Anybody got any questions about that? Does anybody have a mental process they go through when they're shooting that they'd like to share? You got any?
Shot touches, line up the target, get a good breath process going, breathe in, and then starting to breathe out, count to 6, and if I don't have it off by then, I'll restart it again.
You're actually counting in your mind?
Try to.
You try to. Okay.
What's the best breathing technique before you squeeze?
What I do is I just get in position and I just stop breathing. I don't consciously even try to stop. Once I get settled and I've got all the other steps in place, I've just stopped for some reason. But then my body will tell me I need to start breathing, and if it starts saying, hey, you need to take a breath, that's when I quit. I'll stop, take the finger off the trigger first thing, and then put the gun down and start over. When I was a kid, I didn't have a whole lot of training when I was younger, but it's like, take a deep breath, let half of it out, and then start the shot process. By that time, you're out of breath before you even get close. But I breathe normally all the time, like standing is an example I use. I'll be breathing normally all the time I load, put the round in the gun, get in position, settle, I'm still breathing. Then I'll start getting my sight picture, sight alignment, sight picture. And then once I do that, I would have stopped breathing. Not even conscious, I've just done it so much, it's just subconsciously I'll stop. And then when I start actually refining the sight picture and start putting pressure on the trigger, the gun will either go off or else I'll start feeling that I need to take a breath. If I feel like I need to take a breath, that finger comes off the trigger first thing. And then I'll put the gun down, take a few breaths, and start all over again. So everybody picked up a gun and started to shoot and then put it down because it didn't feel right? No? Not really? Okay. Good question, though. Okay. But I encourage you, once you do take the shot, grade yourself on how well it was. And what you say and what you do is just up to you, it doesn't matter. And be honest and truthful, and then try to come up with something that you could do that would be better. Like if you go through all the process and you start thinking that you need to put the gun down, but you shoot it anyway, your thought process would be, well, that wasn't a good shot, and the correction would be, I put the gun down and I need to breathe. Okay. Questions on any of that? One of the things the Army Marksmanship Unit does is they'll make all the new shooters sit down and write out a list of every step they take to shoot a shot, from taking the round out of the box, to putting it in the ejection port, to pushing the bolt stop button, to grasping with the left hand, grasping with the right hand, and verifying whether, and it'll take like 5 pages of steps on shooting a shot. And that's to get you to go through and think about the steps you do take. But then once they shoot for a while, they will find that down to they only think about 3 or 4 things when they actually take a shot. And they'll automatically load the gun, they'll automatically put it in the right position, they'll automatically put their fingers on the trigger, and what I do is concentrate on sight picture, sight alignment, trigger control. That's all I think about when I'm shooting. And everything else I've done so much that it's just pretty much automatic. I don't have to think about it. How do you get to that point? Shooting so much that everything is just automatic. How do you get to that point inexpensively? Dry fire. Okay. Dry fire. It's free. All it takes is your time. How many people watch TV? How many people watch TV more than an hour a day? Okay. Less than an hour a day? Good. Well, that would have been an easy way to have more time to dry fire. Half hour a day? Okay, that's a half hour a day you can dry fire. I unplugged my TV for like 5 years.
Russ, wouldn't you also say, though, that when you're dry firing and you're set up and doing that stuff, you wouldn't want to have the TV playing or a radio or something distracting?
Correct. You should not have music. Well, music, it's whatever environment. Actually, yes and no. When you're dry firing, you should make it as realistic, or make the environment such that you will learn the most. If you're just starting to shoot and you're just trying to concentrate on all these different steps, I would say quiet, secluded place where you won't be disturbed. There might be someone with you to help you, coach you on something. But then, if you're shooting some and you're shooting with somebody that's yelling all the time and causing a commotion on the line, it might be good to dry fire with the TV on to get you used to those distractions and be able to concentrate in your mind while there's something blaring in the background that would disturb you. Actually, when I was at the Olympic Training Center, they were having tryouts, and they would intentionally have people back behind the firing line ringing bells and yelling. They were making announcements over the PA system just to disturb the shooters. Because in a real life shoot-off, that's what would be going on. There'd be an audience behind them, there'd be talking, there'd be people running back and forth, there'd be TV cameras. And so they were trying to train them to be used to that environment. So I guess the answer to that would be yes and no. But for people who haven't dry fired, yeah, turn TV off, turn music off, and just practice the positions. And get all your gear out, except your no ammunition, of course. Put your coat on, put your glove on, put your mat down, put your scope up, and get in the positions and practice that just like a real live match. Okay. Questions on that? Is this boring? Yes, it is. Okay.
First, can I ask you another question about breathing?
Yes.
Have you ever heard of a term called tactical breathing?
No. What is it?
It's basically where you breathe in for like 4 seconds, hold it for like 4 seconds, and you kind of let it out for 4 seconds. You do that 4 times, or like you do like a precision type shot. You know, it's not something you got time to do. But the theory is if you do it a lot, you know, when you're doing tactical shooting, that if you have to make a shot, that whole breathing thing, it's not that you'll really take the 4 seconds and that you'll breathe that way, but what it's supposed to do is teach you to breathe and control your breathing. And by doing that, you're supposed to, it lowers your pulse rate, and it lowers your respiratory rate, because basically what you're doing is you're blowing off, you're hyperventilating yourself, so you're blowing off any acidosis that happens in your body, so your brain's more focused, so you make a better tactical shot. There's a lot of theory and talk out there about that, but I've never really heard it in the rifle world. I've always heard
Well, since you bring that up, what I've actually noticed yesterday is in the rapid fire stages, I would not really hyperventilate, but I would, and in the rapid fire, especially sitting rapid, I will take several deep breaths before I get in position. I'll start breathing. Do you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then force a breath in between
Yeah.
shots.
No, I mean before you get in position. Like when they start going through the range commands, I'll start taking deep breaths and not real hyperventilating.
The reason I was asking you is I've watched you being there with JT and Lucas and different people breathe to see if y'all were doing that, and you do it.
Yeah,
And I haven't consciously, but you do it.
I noticed it yesterday when I was shooting, but I was shooting pistols, and it's a little bit, we shoot 5 shots without a breath in between. And I wouldn't call it hyperventilating, but I was taking several deep breaths before I started. And during the line commands, in the rapid fires, I'll take several deep breaths before I get down in position. Then also with rifle, you take a breath between each shot, so you're not having to hold it a whole lot. But I am trying to oxygenate my body before I get in position. I guess subconsciously, obviously.
Yeah, the medical world, they refer to hyperventilation usually. But, if you're actually medically treating somebody, it's those slow, deep breaths, because they reach down deep and kind of force out all the carbon dioxide, so you want to.
Another good point, yeah. And you're right, I do that somewhat. Okay, who can tell me what follow through is? Got you.
It's kind of like after you're shot, holding the rifle in place with your finger down on the trigger.
Right. Why do you do that? Anybody know why you do that?
So you see the call the shot and see the sight picture.
That's part of it. Also, the way I think about it, okay, years ago, remember muzzle loaders? Remember you pull the trigger and it takes a long time before the shot goes off, especially the flintlocks. That's probably where follow through started. Because you pull the trigger and it's several seconds before the gun goes off. But now, when you pull the trigger with an AR, the lock time is in milliseconds, maybe 50 milliseconds or fractions of a second. So the gun goes off pretty quickly. But anybody know anything about electricity, how fast it travels through wires and stuff? Pretty fast. Your brain, all the functions, it's basically electrical signals. When your brain tells you to shoot, your brain's also fast and lazy. At least mine is. Mine's real lazy. May not be that fast, but most people's brain are pretty fast. Your brain will tell your finger to move. And then the electrical currents in your brain will say, hey, I've already said to shoot, so I've already shot. And so your brain goes to something else. And they say, well, now I got to think about what I'm going to do tonight, what I'm going to eat for dinner, or where'd that shot go? So the way I think about it is your brain has always said shoot before that electrical signal can get to the muscles and cause the muscles to twitch to pull that trigger. And then it's already gone on to something else. So if you don't keep thinking about pulling that trigger, your brain's going to go start doing something else, because just like a computer, it's fast. And it does one job and it goes to the next. So it's not going to dwell on that trigger pull unless you concentrate on follow through. So the brain can say, pull the trigger, and then go on to, well, how to shoot, before that finger ever twitches. And then you're looking at the sights, and you're looking at the target, and you're starting to go to the scope before you even pull the trigger. So follow through is kind of forcing your brain to stay on task until after it actually gets done. It's the way I think about it. Somebody else may differ. But it also, if you don't follow through, you can't call your shots very well. So follow through will help you call your shots. Okay.
Well, that's one of the parts of my shot process, is especially in offhand. That's kind of one of the things that I tell myself is to exaggerate the follow.
Yeah.
So if you think you're following through enough, then follow through even more.
Yeah.
And that'll just allow you to stay on that site just that extra split second and call it that much better.
Yeah. I've seen people start to take the rifle out of their shoulder before they, almost as soon as it goes off. And that's almost no follow through. But follow through basically is keeping the shot process going until after the shot goes off. And that's make sure you don't interrupt the shot while it's in the process. Questions on that? Anybody have any challenges with follow through? Anybody have any clue of whether or not they follow through or not? What about you?
I do.
You do? Okay. Because it's a challenge for me. I don't follow through as much as I need to. Another thing I was wanting to talk about, this is some of that gray area that I get confusing on, is mental training. Mental training. There's a couple of different aspects of mental training. First part is going down the list, paying attention to what you're doing, concentrating on the match, being ready for the next stage, and actually the thinking part of what you're doing. Do I have my magazines loaded? Do I have my zeros on the guns? Do I know the zeros to have everything ready for the next stage? That's part of the process, and that I've got checklists written down. Several times I've gone to match and forget stuff that I really need. And so it's, once I figure out everything I need, if I write a checklist to know, make myself a checklist and use it every time I go to a match, I don't forget stuff. Like I forgot glasses. Hard to shoot without glasses, especially if you can't see without them. So that's an easy way to make sure you've got everything you need before you go to a match. I've got my stool, got my rifle, got my ammo, gear protect, you know. That's kind of the thinking part of the matches. Go ahead, Bob.
I like Rush is talking about, I actually start making a list. Lists are great things before I go to a competition, especially if I'm going out of state. I have a list of stuff from rifle and sling all the way down to my socks. And then as I load things in the truck or I load things in my bag, I can mentally check off those things on the list. And then one of the things when I'm shooting a match, as Rush referred to about getting ready for actually shooting, I have to remember every time I go to stand not to buckle and tighten up my shooting jacket at the bottom so I can't bend over anymore before I get the things out of the pockets of my stool that I need so I can shoot standing. My cartridge box, my brass deflector. So that's part of my mental checklist. I got to remember not to do it, because then I have to undo everything, get back out of position, so I can get that stuff out of my stool. That's kind of more of a mental list than it is a wrist one.
Okay, great. Good idea. Turn your paper over, and this is homework. When you go to Bob's next match, show him the checklist that you developed of the equipment you need to take to the match. So between now and the next match you have with Bob, develop a checklist of equipment you need to take with you to go to a match. So that'll vary based on what everybody has, what everybody needs. But show him that list when you get there. Okay. Question?
I know, I was writing something.
Okay, now turn your paper back over. Okay, one of the things you mentioned earlier is when you went to Perry, one of the challenges was all the excitement, all the things going on, and finding the right place on the range, being there at the right time, knowing which way to go, where. This is the kind of thinking that you need to be doing at those big matches, is figure out how to keep track of where you need to be and what the next stage you'll be shooting and stuff like that. And one of the things they give you at Perry is a match bulletin. You remember that little white booklet that tells you where you need to go, when you need to, or not when you need to be there, but the order that it'll be going. There's no times involved. It's just after this guy finishes, you'll be next type thing. So that's very important, because if you don't show up at the right location at the right time, you either don't get to shoot, or big things, you don't get to shoot. If you don't get to shoot, you get a 0 on that, or you get disqualified for not going to the pits when you're supposed to. So paying attention and concentrating on the flow of the match and where you need to go is extremely important. Shooting at the wrong target, that's real important too. So shooting at the correct target, I should say. So that's part of paying attention, concentrating on the things you're doing during the match, putting your zeros on the gun, getting ready for the next stage, stuff like that. Any questions about that? Has there anyone other than you been to a match where you actually go to different locations during the day, like go to the pits, or you shoot and then you score? Okay. That gets to be more important as you go to matches with pits or larger matches. But like out here practicing or going to a match where you stay on the same target and you shoot the same order and everybody stays the same, that's a lot simpler to do. The next thing about mental training is visualization. Who knows what visualization means?
Visualizing what you want to see.
Yeah. Do you know, have a clue? Do you daydream? You know what daydreaming
no,
is?
and you don't daydream? He daydreams about lunch.
Daydreams about lunch. You know what visualization is? Basically, daydream. Who daydreams? Who daydreams about getting out of here today and eating lunch? Or getting out to the range instead of listening to me talk? Okay, that's visualization is a fancy word for daydreaming. But it's also daydreaming in a directed and focused direction. Like going back to school, whose parents tells them they do real well in class and they earn A's and they deserve to get A's because they work hard and they're real smart. Anybody have a parent like that? Does anybody have a parent that says you're stupid, you're not going to amount to anything? That affects how well you do. If you tell yourself you're smart, and you believe, if you tell yourself that enough, you'll believe you're smart. I keep telling myself I'm a good speaker, and I'm not boring. And I believe it. You guys may not. But if you tell yourself that, if you daydream about that, you know, about what you think you should be able to do, it'll come true. Anybody believe that? If you believe you're a good person, if you believe you're smart, you'll do well in class. If you believe you're a good shooter, and you believe you can shoot 95 offhand, it'll come true. You have to do some other things to get there too, but just believing it will make it possible. Because on the flip side, you can do all the other stuff. You can practice, and you can dry fire, and you can shoot matches. If you believe you can't shoot a 90 offhand, you won't shoot a 90 offhand. It doesn't matter how good you are. You'll crossfire or you'll do something stupid that'll bring your score down. Does anybody believe that? No. Any questions on that? Got any comments on that in class? You want to say anything about that? No, I want you to say something. What do you think? What do you daydream about? What about in shooting? What do you think about? Okay. Do you think about shooting? what did you think about this morning before you came out here? Sorry? Food? There ain't no food. In Highpower, we don't take a lunch break. You guys used to that? Spend all day?
Yes, we were used to it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We don't take a lunch break. We don't take a break for anything. You just keep shooting all day. Okay, back to daydreaming. I daydream, night dream, whatever, but I can shoot good. And I believe I can shoot good. Well, sometimes I think I can shoot good, sometimes I don't. But your expectations and how you think affect how well you can shoot. That's a fact. And don't listen to people, or don't listen to yourself when you shoot a bad shot. Don't say, well, yeah, I can't shoot. Don't just forget about it. If you shoot a bad shot, forget about it and go back and start thinking about the next shot. Your self-talk is very important, and telling yourself you can do things really affect whether or not you can do it. And going back to the daydream, visualization sounds a whole lot better than daydreaming. It sounds a whole lot more professional, a whole lot more technical or whatever. But you can daydream about a couple of different things. There's two basic ideas. First of all is think about yourself. You know, you're a good shooter, you can shoot well, you always shoot well, you call your shots, you go through the shot process all the time. You call your shots. If you make a mistake, you just figure out what you need to do to not do it again and just keep going on. That's one type of visualization. That's one type of daydreaming. Another type is instead of dry firing, if you spend 5 minutes before you go to sleep at night, just lay there and you think about the shot process. Think about, visualize or daydream yourself going through the shot. You pick up the rifle, I put the round in the gun, I close the bolt, I get the position, and you visualize it in your mind. And then you visualize getting on target and getting your sight picture and getting your sight alignment and then squeezing the trigger and the gun goes off and it's a perfect 10. Everybody tried doing that? Actually, I've done that and I can't get 10s all the time. I'll say, well, shucks, that was a 9. And that's because I don't tell myself that I'm a good shooter enough. That, you know, I'm a great shooter. I always shoot 10s because I can't even daydream or visualize that I'm shooting 10s all the time. I'll still shoot a wide 9.
I wasn't quick enough earlier when you were on self-talk. I've heard a lot of people like Troy Lawton, who is one of the greatest shooters in the country. He actually creates the loads for the Army Marksmanship Unit, but he talks about not thinking any negative thoughts, thinking only positive thoughts when you're shooting, just like Rush mentioned. But he also talks about not being around or listening to other people talking negatively. You should hang around with positive people, and you should only talk positively about shooting when you're doing it. And I have seen so many people over the years, once they shoot a bad shot, they can't let it go and think about, just worry about the next shot, just leave that one behind. And their score will go downhill from there because they can't let that go. Rush was right. When you shoot a bad shot, say, okay, well, I need to do this, or I forgot to do that, and leave it and go on. Don't constantly think about that one bad shot because it'll affect the rest of your shooting.
Good point. Also, you can write this name down, Lanny, L-A-N-N-Y, Basham, B-A-S-H-A-M. He has a website that's got a lot of information about this subject on there. And I encourage you to go look at his website. He also sells books that are real good. I went to one of his classes, I actually went to 4 of his classes last year. And, he's a Olympic gold medal rifle shooter. And he's developed a business about talking about daydreaming or visualization or mental training. But you can go to his website, there's a lot of information on there that's free. There's also a lot of information you can pay for. There's a lot of books you can buy. But I would recommend going to his website and look at it. Okay, so the visualization, there's 2 parts. The first part, the daydreaming about how good you are and how great you are, that's the first part. The second is visualizing or daydreaming about the shot process. Going through, like, all the good shooters, all the people that shoot a lot and achieve the higher awards, they develop a shot process for shooting shots. They develop a process for shooting the stages, shooting the rapid fire stage or whatever. And you can go home at night and visualize or daydream that shot process to help you figure out how you can do it better. And helps you concentrate more when you actually are firing live rounds or dry firing even. It'll help you be able to establish your positions and go through the process a lot easier. Like your mind is lazy, my mind is lazy. It likes to do the same thing over and over. It's easy, it doesn't have to think. And if I keep doing the same process over and over, I don't have to think while I'm doing something. I just kind of automatically do it. And like breathing, I don't remember to breathe anymore when I'm shooting. It just kind of happens automatically. I don't even remember pulling the trigger 90% of the time. It just happens. And by visualizing or daydreaming about the shot process will help you get to that point.
So when you're setting up for a shot, whether you're on a range or whether you're visualizing or whether you're dry firing, you go through the same physical motions each time that makes you feel like I'm doing everything properly, and then you feel good about taking the shot.
And you can even refine that down to less and less. Like AMU, first time they write out a list of all the steps that's like 3 pages worth. I've got it down to like 3 or 4 steps. And then of those 3 or 4 steps, there's only 1 or 2 that's important, and that's sight picture, sideline sight picture, and pull the trigger. And everything else, you know, I've already programmed or tried to program my mind to do it without me thinking about it. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, so what's daydreaming? What's directed daydreaming?
Thinking positively about the shot that's wrong so that you can make it a good shot.
Yeah. And that works for not just shooting, it works for school. I'm a great student, I study all the time, I get good grades, I do well on tests. Everybody get nervous before a test? You taking SATs, PSATs, or whatever, you get nervous? To help you test better if you're nervous? So if you walk in thinking I'm going to do well, nothing to worry about, you do better. Same for anything like that in school. And also, another problem is people, like at the big matches, gets excited. First time they've been to a big match, they'll get nervous. Anybody know what the EIC matches are? It's the excellence in competition matches that you can shoot to become distinguished. And the distinguished program is a very difficult program. Matches are tough. It's been going on since what, 1880s, and there's 2,500 people that are distinguished in the last 150 years or something. I don't do the math. So there's not a lot of people that earn that rating. And people call them leg matches instead of EIC matches, and they say they're leg matches because your legs are shaking so much when you're standing there trying to shoot, because everybody's so nervous. Okay, any questions? So you can use this mental process, this daydreaming, to keep yourself from getting nervous. You can be relaxed or whatever. You can try to be relaxed during big matches. It's still hard, but I guess I don't think about it enough. And also you can think about the shot process, going through each shot process, going through all the side alignment, trigger control, while you're breaking a shot. Any questions on mental training or visualization or daydreaming? You didn't think we'd be talking about daydreaming today, did you? Okay, let's take a short break. It's about 10 or 15 minutes.
The shot preparation earlier, I noticed years ago when I was shooting trap, watching other people before I knew anything, you'd watch those guys when they were shooting, and they set up for their shot the same way every time. Just like a golfer sets up the same way every time. And I find myself doing the same thing when I shoot trap, and now when I'm shooting high power. Like if I don't do everything the same way every time, I'm not really prepared to shoot a shot. So when I get my rifle, I'll load around in the chamber, dump the bolt, change my hand grip, take the buttstock, put it in that little pocket right there, put my face on the stock, get my grip, come down, check my number board, and then come back up to the target and do my breathing, and I'm ready to fire my shot. But if I don't do every one of those things exactly the same way every time, I start over because it doesn't feel right. Does that make sense? Do you guys do that?
Kind of the way I.
Most of the time I do, but sometimes I don't, and that's when I shoot those shots I say that I shouldn't have shot. But yeah, that's what I was trying to explain earlier. You do the same process every shot, every shot, every shot. Anybody have any questions about goals and goal setting? What's a goal?
Something that you hope to achieve?
Okay, should you write them down?
Yes.
Okay. And then since you don't have that goal yet, you gotta reach it. You gotta come up with plans on what you need to change to reach that goal. What would you call that? Okay, well, I haven't talked about it.
Plan of
But
action.
if you develop that enough, you can call it a training plan for shooting. So, and Bob should be working with you guys, developing training plans for you guys so that you'll improve as the year goes along. But you can incorporate that training plan to reach your goal. And that would be the training plan to help you overcome the objectives to reach the goal. Any questions about the shot process? There were 4 or 5 different aspects about it. List some of them.
Make sure your butt stops in the same place. Sight picture.
Sight picture, what's another one?
Steady breathing.
Breath control,
Trigger control.
trigger control, what's another one?
You just don't know.
Okay, there's still 2 left.
Hold.
Hold control, that's a good one.
Consistency.
Well, that's always involved, but what was the other one we had listed? Follow through, yeah, follow through, need to follow through. Any questions on that? Safety, what are the 3 primary safety rules? 1,
Keep your finger off the trigger.
what did I say?
You said,
Your
keep
finger
your straight.
straight and off the trigger, good. What's another one? We want people not
Safe,
looking at it. Hmm?
keep muzzle in a safe position.
Keep the rifle pointed in a safe direction. Okay, that's another good one. What's another, the last one? When do you load? Okay, so keep the rifle unloaded until you're ready to use it. Right? Okay, so let's recap. First one, keep your finger straight and off the trigger. Only load your rifle. Keep your rifle unloaded until, and what's the third one?
Down range.
Keep
Muzzle down range.
Keep your rifle pointed in a safe direction. Okay. Any questions about what we talked about so far? Next thing we'll do is talk about getting ready to go to a match, talk about individual preparation for each individual stage and for the match in general. We'll let Vince talk about it. Blake, I work with you.
All right, so you know, we've got it broken down here, basically before the match, at the match, during the match, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, before the match, I always, you know, first of all, you gotta know what kind of match you're shooting. There's different, you know, 50-shot matches, 80-shot matches, long-range matches, different kind of things. So, you know, part of my preparation before the match was just making sure I had the right ammo for the right stages and the right quantities and all that kind of stuff. And high power, because you've got rapid fire stages and that kind of thing, you've got magazines. So I would always make sure that all my magazines were loaded and all that kind of stuff was ready to go before I even loaded the car. So you can have a checklist. You know, I need my rifle, I need my jacket, I need my shooting glove, I need my cart, I need my spotting scope, I need, you know, all of these things. And, you know, make sure you have all that stuff taken care of before you even, you know, kind of prepare for the day. Because the last thing you want to do is, you know, be driving down the road, and I'm sure we've all done it, and there's, you know, you're an hour from home and an hour from the range, and you're like, I wonder if I brought that. And so that messes the whole day up. So make sure you've got all that kind of stuff. As far as zeros on your rifle, data book is a really important part of all of this. Bob, maybe figure one out for me. You got one? This? This. So a data book will allow you to keep detailed information on your rifle. Everything from sight zeros for different yard lines. Some people use different holes, like we were talking earlier, the 6 o'clock hole versus the center of mass hole. So you want to make sure that you have all that information there. So, you know, when you get, you know, to the match, you know, everything's there for you to set your scope or set your rifle without having to, you know, be thinking back, well, what am I supposed to be doing? Have all the information for your rifle, clean and lube rifle. So I always kind of made it a habit, especially on rifle or on matches where you get sighters. I would go through, I'd clean the rifle really well, I'd lube my bolt, and make sure that everything was in as good of, you know, functionality as possible. You know, there are situations where guns malfunction, and there are alibis, and there's ways we can get around that kind of thing. But the less we have to worry about equipment failures, the more time we can put into focusing on shot execution. So you want your rifle clean, you want it lubed, you want it functioning the best it can. Know the rule book and match bulletin. That comes back to knowing how many shots you're going to fire at each stage, having your magazines loaded and that kind of thing. The match bulletin is basically going to be a bulletin telling you, you know, we're going to have 3 relays. We're going to shoot 200 yards standing. There's going to be a pit finish. Relay 1 will go to the pits. Relay 2 will come out and shoot. Relay 3 will score. And so kind of knowing that ahead of time and being prepared so you're not, you know, running around saying, oh, do I have to shoot or do I have to go to the pits or that kind of thing. Having all that kind of pre-planned out takes a little stress off of you in match day, especially the big matches, you know, on your first time to Perry or something like that. Preparation for each stage. You know, I like to have everything ready to go. It's the first match of the day. I have it ready to go before I even get out onto the range, and then as the day goes on, I'll be prepared for the next stage right after I finish the previous stage. So, you know, you're going to have your magazines loaded. Your rifle, the sight settings will already be there. You don't want to be wasting your prep time adjusting your sight. Sight's black. We use a carbon type burner to black sights. So, you know, when you've got iron sights up there, any kind of glare or anything like that will make it hard to see. So we'll black our sights, whether it's with a burner or with a spray or something like that. Have your sling adjusted. Every position is going to require your sling to be in a different hold setting, depending on, you know, for me, being prone, I'm pretty long and lanky, so my sling has to be a lot longer to be out here than it would be in the sitting position. So, and that's another thing you would have in your data book, you know, for sitting in your prone stages, which hold setting you would have your sling set at. So we want to have all that done before we go to the line. Equipment organized and readily available. So, you know, I kind of, when I sit down at the line or when I'm preparing, depending on how the stage is going to be, you know, I've kind of got this layout where I want my ammo box here and I want my data book here and my score, or, you know, if I've got something where I've got to keep score or whatever. You know, so I'm going to have all of that stuff kind of predetermined where it's going to be. Same kind of thing with your shooting equipment. You know, on certain stages, my mat's laying straight, on some it's turned. My spotting scope is going to be in the same place on every time. So, you know, I should be able to come up to the line, lay my mat down, sit my spotting scope down, and get in position, and I don't have to do a lot of fidgeting around. Everything is pretty much in a predetermined place. So that brings us to our prep period.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
As I got into shooting matches, and that's the great thing about us going to and starting the matches, that we have the local matches first before we go to the big matches where you have to start changing. You go to the pits and work the pits, and then you shoot, and then you score. These local matches where you don't have to do that yet allow you to get more of your preparation in your head before you have to start doing that other stuff. When I pull up to, say, Fort Gordon on match day, I like have a set routine that I go through. Get out of the truck, I open the back, I check all my magazines, either load them or make sure they're still loaded. And then I put the cartridges for standing in the cartridge box, and I put the sweat band around it to hold those in. Then I make sure that my data book is turned to the right page. I make sure my sling is set for 200 yards. And this is at the gate before we even get into the range. Because I know those things that when I first started, I said, oh my gosh, I gotta hurry and get everything ready. So now I have this set procedure that I go through and that you'll learn when I get to the range, so that I don't have to scramble when they say, get your equipment to the line. And like when you're at Camp Perry and you're on the assembly line or the ready line behind the firing line, and it's your turn to shoot next, while they're still gathering up their brass and getting ready for, you know, to come off the line, I'm standing back there. I got my sweatshirt on. I got my shooting jacket all cinched down except for the bottom one. And my rifle is ready to go, you know, and I got the sling set for that stage. And so when they say you got to move your equipment to the line, you have 2 minutes before your prep period starts, I'm at the line. Just like Blake said, bam, mat goes down, bam, scope goes out, cart goes right here, and I'm ready to get in position and start.
Yeah, definitely. And the more you do it, the easier that'll become. It'll just be a routine, just like, you know, getting up and getting ready for school in the morning. I mean, you kind of do the same thing over and over and over, and it you know, becomes habit almost. On one note, you were talking about preparing for the 200-yard line. I have been bitten from that a couple times, so I have kind of made it a point to always, you know, I don't ever set my sights before I get to the range. I always put my 200-yard zero on once I'm there. I always go back to mechanical zero. Showed up at the P100 one day and still had my sitting zero on, and shot my first 3 shots at, you know, 9 o'clock 8s before I realized that I was a full revolution off. So not a good way to start the Nationals. let's see, so prep period. The more stuff we can have done before the prep period, the more time you're gonna have in your prep period. Prep period is only 3 minutes, which seems like, oh, I got time, I'm really got it around. But I would rather spend my 3 minutes dry firing, refining my position, making sure my natural point of aim is right. You know, you truly want to be able to get in position, close your eyes, relax, take a few breaths, open your eyes, and still be pointed at your target. If you're pointing somewhere else, that's where, you know, the issues come up where, you know, you get distracted or whatever and you shoot the wrong target. So I try to really maximize that 3 minutes and get the most out of it I can. So by doing that, you know, or to do that, you've got to have everything else ready to go. So when your prep period time comes up, you come up, hit the ground, get in position, and you're ready to go. Make final adjustments to the position. So, and I'm sure we'll talk about this more when we get into the position sections. But you know, depending on the positions, you'll use your, you know, your feet angles and that kind of thing. In standing and sitting, you get your feet turned a certain direction, and all that will adjust your natural point of aim, so the rifle is naturally pointing at your target without having to use muscle to push it to where you want it to go. So dry fire and mental program. You know, I'll spend, you know, in shooting a service rifle, you know, you don't have to worry about working the bolt and stuff like that, but you'll get, you know, get down in position and take those breaths, and just like you would in the actual firing time, you know, take your breaths, you know, relax into it, squeeze the shot, follow through, call your shot, even though you didn't shoot a shot, call it, you know, hey, I think I broke that thing, you know, low in the 10 room. You know, don't lean into it, and kind of prepare yourself for the stage that's ahead of you. After the stage, whether it's slow fire or rapid fire, you want to verify your shots and scores, plot your shots. So that's where your data book's going to come in. Some people have different routines as far as plotting individual shots. Personally, I don't plot individual shots. Now, on rapid fire, I'll plot a group, just because that's going to help you refine your zeros a lot better. But for me, the only time I really plot something in slow fire is if something weird happens. So, as long as my shots are going on call, even if it's an 8 at 9 o'clock, if I knew it was an 8 at 9 o'clock, there's no reason for me to write that down. Now, all your misses are 8s at 9 o'clock, then you may want to make note of it and figure out why you're having 8s at 9 o'clock. But like I say, typically I plot more of a group, and that way I can refine my zeros. And you know, the more refined your zeros, the more confidence you're going to have when you go to the line, and not having to worry about, well, I hope I'm on target, or I hope I don't shoot all my shots out left. Knowing your zeros adds a lot of confidence. After all that's done, there'll be a time for you to clean up your firing point, pick up your brass, get all your gear gathered back up, loaded on your stove, and get out of the way for the next folks. After you're back off the line, that's the point where I go ahead and prepare for that next stage. Again, I want to be ahead of the game. I don't want to be, you know, if I'm leaving the 200-yard line, before I leave the 200-yard line, I've got my 300-yard zero on. And that's just one less thing I've got to focus on when I get back to 300. Make any notes. That's one reason I didn't bring my data book today, because there's some some notes in there that are not family friendly. You know, because you can learn stuff no matter what. You know, you have a bad stage or whatever. And, it could be because you let your nerves get to you. It could be because you were ill-prepared. It could be because whatever. So make notes in there. And, you know, next time you're preparing for that, you know, that 300 rapid fire line and you're looking back at your zeros and you see that note, you know, don't hold your breath through the last 6 shots or whatever, you know, whatever you did. If you can make notes of that, that's just kind of a refresher, you know, just to do your thing and not do that same thing over again. Let's see, anything else you can think of as far as preparation?
On plotting your shots, if you look at your score book there, like for the rapid fire stage, I'll plot all 10 shots. And then what I'll do is I'll draw a cross or a plus sign. I'll look at the 10 shots and I'll draw a plus sign in the middle of the group. And then I'll draw a plus sign in the middle of the target and figure out the differences.
Okay.
So that'll help you refine your zeros. If your group is not in the center of the target, figure out how far you need to adjust your sights to get it in the center. If you shot a good group and you said everything else was good, you just, for some reason, your zero was different. And then if you look at, like I've noticed over the years that I'll shoot I'll establish a certain zero and I'll shoot groups and they'll be in the center for a long time. Then the next thing I know, I'll shoot a group and they'll be way high. And I'll do that a couple of times and I finally figured out why. Because I don't put the stock in my shoulder at the same point. But it'll help you in developing and refining your zeros for that yard line and for that stage. By plotting your group and then plotting where it is from your center and making the correction to the zero and keeping track of that. Also write notes down like maybe your position, was there something different from normal, or if there was something that made it feel different than what you normally do, and kind of try to learn from that and write down anything that you think would help you in the future. But, also, Blake mentioned the rule book. You need to know, okay, there's only 88 pages here, but you need to know the rule book. I wouldn't expect anybody to know everything in here, but the first time you show up at a match, you need to know some of the rules. And every time you go to the match, you need to know more of the rules, because it affects how you score the targets. It tells you how much time you've got for a stage. It tells you if you've got 10 shots standing. It tells you how much time you've got for that. You don't have to ask anybody. It tells you how to score a shot that's real close to the line, or if you shoot on the wrong target, it tells you how to do all that stuff. If you're in the pits, like at Perry or at Gordon, it tells you how to score and mark the targets, which is something you're required to do, so you need to know how to do that. But I keep one on my nightstand. I read a little bit of it every day or two, and I still don't know the rules. Also, it teaches, it's got in here what to do if you have problems. Say your gun malfunctions. This tells you what you can do legally by the rules to address that. You don't have to say, well, what do I do now? Or if you're scoring a target and there's more shots on there than there's supposed to be, it tells you what to do. So get one, start looking over it, and kind of start reading it as you can and start learning as you can. And some of the rules are more obvious than others in terms of, once you go to a match, you'll figure out pretty quickly what you need to do. Questions on those?
There's always going to be officials at the match that will help with the rules. You know, if there's ever anything comes up, you can always ask. Yeah. But by knowing those things, it definitely, again, it's one less thing to have to worry about.
Yeah, and there's also people there that don't know the rules, that'll tell you wrong, incorrectly, what you can do and what you can't do. You can order it from the NRA. Bob should be providing you guys some during your weekly practice session. You may ask him to do that.
Rush, on your ammo, is like, if you're shooting the same kind of ammo, all the time, or resighting the rifle, how much does your ammo affect rezeroing your rifle as far as, down range and stuff? I mean, is that something that you need to consistently always shoot the same brand, same things?
In your case right now, it makes a little bit of difference, not much. In my case, I've been shooting the same ammo for 5 years. The same, well, the lot number changed because I didn't remember that and had to change, but I shoot the same bullets, the same load, the same powder for like the last 5 years. So as you move up the ratings, like go from sharpshooter to expert to master, whatever, you need to be more consistent, and as your groups get tighter and tighter, you need to be more consistent with the ammo, and changing from one brand to another can change your zeros. Changing from one load to another can change your zeros. But if you're shooting big groups, you're trying to keep them in the black, it probably won't make a lot of difference. But it will change the zeros somewhat.
And the farther the distance, obviously, the bigger it matter.
Yeah.
If you're out there practicing the offhand stage, you're shooting 200 yards on a fairly forgiving target, especially for a new shooter. You probably go out there and shoot just about any ammo, and it's not really going to make a difference. But that was another thing I kind of missed out on the data book deal was making notes as far as ammo. I think you guys will be shooting Black Hills reman stuff. If you are shooting reloads, make sure you have detailed notes of what load you're shooting, because I have played with different things and forget to write it down. Is that the 52 grain load or is that the 77 grain load?
Yeah. So for the first year or two, concentrate more on being organized when you show up, and being organized when you get ready to shoot the stage is more important than the ammo. Once you learn all the process of the matches and you're getting up into the expert range and stuff, you need to be a lot more critical than ammo. Good question. Okay. So if you haven't picked up on anything I've talked about today, organization is real important. My brain is lazy. The less I think, I'll think about 2 things while I'm there all day. Sight picture and trigger control. That's all I want to think about. And everything I can do to relieve my mind of any other pressure is good. So I lay my magazines, they're turned up the same way. Blake is the most disorganized person I think I've ever met when he's talking about getting organized. I lay my magazines the same direction every time. I'm a real nitpicker about consistency and organization. And that was my job. I plan everything I do. Keep lists, keep checklists, do everything the same every time. Maybe I'm a little OC or whatever. But do the same thing every time. And that's what shooting is. Do the same thing. Once you get to the sight picture, sight alignment, trigger, do the same thing. So I do the same thing all day, every day, or I try to. So organization is real big. Any questions? No questions. Okay. I guess we can start talking about positions. Blake, start talking about the standing position, and I'm going to bring my equipment over here. If you stand here, just go through the basics.
Standing position, organization. The standing position, a lot of people think that it's the hardest position. Yes, it's unsupported. You don't have your elbows on the ground. You're the rifle is as far from the ground as it will be in any stage. So a lot of people consider the standing position the most unstable, and because it's unstable, it's going to be the hardest stage. Some people will argue that it's not the hardest stage. It is the most unstable position, but you know, what I learned, and you know, it takes kind of a little bit of time to get to this point, but what I've found, the standing position can be one of the easiest stages. The nice thing about the standing position is you've got 20 minutes to shoot 20 shots. So there's plenty of time. There's no, well, I don't say there's no, but you're only shooting at 200 yards. So external conditions, wind, barometric pressure, lighting, all those things that happen after the bullet leave the barrel at 200 yards, there's less time or less error there. So you're close and you got plenty of time. So I go into it as being the 200-yard standing stage is going to be the easiest stage. That's also part of the mental training and tricking yourself too. But because you've got so much time, you don't have to shoot a bad shot. Like they were talking about earlier in the position. You know, you build this routine, you got your shot, your ammo pouch here, you load the rifle, you get it here, you get your hand right, get it here, get locked into position, you go through your couple breaths, get it settled, blah, blah, blah. So if at any point during that whole process, if it doesn't feel right, just stop and start over. Again, 20 minutes to shoot 20 shots is a long time. So no reason to rush it. Just, like I say, if it doesn't feel right, stop and start over. As far as the position itself, there's tons of different positions. You'll see different, you know, guys and girls, thin, thick, tall, short, lots of different body types, lots of different positions. So, you know, there may, you know, we can definitely help you with a good starting point, but it's something that you're going to develop through dry fire and through experience and that kind of stuff to develop your position. And what works for you may not work for me, and what works for me may not work for you. But the fundamentals of the position is you want bone-to-bone support. Anytime that you add muscles into the equation, whether it's using muscles to turn your hips or using muscles to hold the rifle up, anytime you add muscle into the equation, you're going to have movement. So I'm not going to say that the standing position is a relaxed position, but it's definitely a bone-supported position. So what I try to think about, you know, I want my feet as a starting point. Again, everybody's going to be a little different. But as a starting point, I want my feet underneath my hips, and I want my hips underneath my shoulders, and I want the gun balanced in the middle of all that. So my ankles are relaxed, my knees are relaxed, my hips are relaxed, my shoulders are relaxed. Can I hold that? So, all right. Yep. Yellow flags, I'm sure Bob has talked to y'all about that. Yellow flags always indicate that the chamber's empty. It's got a little thing that sticks up in there, so we know that we're not going to shoot anything if we don't want to. So, again, I want my feet kind of standard width apart. And normally for me, you know, if you're leaning forward, you know, you've got this rifle here, you know, probably weighs 16 pounds. 17 and a half pounds. So, you know, it's a lot of weight. If you try to hold it out here like this, you know, you're going to fall over. So I want the weight not only this way centered up, I want it this way centered up. So I want the rifle sitting over my feet. So, see where I was going with that. Yeah, so you know, bone to bone to bone, no muscles. Ankles, knees, hips, all the way into your shoulders. And without my jacket and all that kind of stuff, it's gonna be a little bit different here, but basically, my position is gonna look something like this. And it feels awful without a jacket. But, so, really, there's nothing that's like flexed. You know, I'm not like this, because if you were to try to support the rifle this way, you know, I'm having to really hold some weight out there, the rifle's so heavy. So again, I'm gonna bring the rifle back and get it over my body so that everything is supported by bones. So, you know, again, lower body's pretty self-explanatory. Upper body,
Something else that I thought about when I saw him, see the chipmunk cheek? You like that? What's that tell you?
He's close to the side.
He's got his head firmly on the stock. And he does it now. He's done that. That gets your head in the same position every time, and it also makes the gun feel like it kicks less. If you've got your head good, firm head contact, there won't be as much recoil. Also, it gets you in the same position, get your eye in the same position behind the sight. So pick up again. Oh, just hold it. We can try to get this light if you want.
what's that?
Can we get a lighter one if you want? Okay.
Harder without a jacket.
Yeah. He's turned roughly 90 degrees from the target, maybe a little bit back or forth, but that's pretty much where you start. His support hand, it's, like I said, bone to bone, it's vertical, gravity supporting it. You got your elbow up against your chest, so it's, most of this arm is relaxed except for just a little bit of tension to hold it in place. This arm is also pretty much down. It's not sticking out. And that'll vary based on, if you shoot a different type of rifle, sometimes people put their elbow out. You want to have your center of gravity. Holding the rifle up will move your body, put more weight out, like you were saying, more weight out here, so you do have to lean back a little bit. You don't want to be leaning back. Just keep
Well, I was just showing them this where the rifle is this way.
Okay. He's leaning back a little bit more than I need to, but then I've got a little bit of balance.
You got to offset.
Yeah. But this is a lazy man sport. The less muscle you can use, the better off you want to be. Like the legs are not locked; they're just standing normally. Hips are over the legs, just like you said. And this is the most relaxed, comfortable position you can shoot in all day. Any questions? Let's say you're on target and you're a little bit to the left. A little bit 3 o'clock. How?
Wrong hand. That's all right. This way.
Okay. NPA, natural point of aim. If you pick up the rifle 20 times, how often should you verify your natural point of aim?
20 times.
20 times. Every time you pick up a rifle. Okay, let's say he's just a little bit off target. You want to move to the left a little. Yeah, that's what you do. Move both feet a little bit. I mean, that's a lot at 200 yards. Watch it a little bit low. You can hold this arm out and kind of raise the shoulder up, and then with the coats, if you bring it back in, it's going to stick up there, so you can relax and it'll be a little bit higher. As somebody pointed out to me, think of putting a handkerchief under your forearm, under this part of your arm, and holding the handkerchief between your body. So you don't take a lot of, you don't have to squeeze it, just kind of, just so it's touching, it's going to stay there. And then the coat will help it from sliding back down to where it normally would be. So you can do a little bit of adjustment that way.
Yeah. And this arm, you know, it's not over here. You want to pull it around and get it actually resting on your ribs. And most jackets will have a rubber sticky pad right here. So, like you said, to raise it up, if you get in position and you're a little low, you know, I'll pull up and actually pull this arm in a little bit more, and that'll give me a little more elevation.
There's also a couple different hand positions. You can try to,
This way?
yeah,
This way?
that way. Like, that's a variation on a hand position. Turn it back around the way you had it. Just grasp on the forward.
This way?
That's a hand position.
Very uncomfortable.
That's but you can vary the hand position to
I
get
shoot this way.
to get your rifle to the right elevation. I shot this way for a while. That'll get your elevation up a little bit higher. I had trouble holding the rifle, but there's also some hand positions I tried that I'm not going to talk about because it violates the rules in terms of bone support, but it felt like it solved a problem that caused other problems.
What about resting the magazine on top of your hand like that?
I've seen people do that, and I silently laugh at them, but I don't tell them.
Because
It's not a stable position.
It's not stable in match rifle, it's not even legal.
It's like balancing a pumpkin on a 2x4 on a fence post. It gives the rifle can wobble this way a lot more than if you're holding the rifle itself. So no, don't use that position. Is that clear enough? Also, the magazine sticks down here, and I hold it like this, and I can actually let the magazine rest up against my forearm to help steady it and keep it from wobbling. If you put it up here, it's going to wobble more like this. Questions about standing position? One thing I've found, took you some trial and error learning experience, is that during the prep period, I dry fire for 3 minutes and get my natural point of aim, make sure I'm exactly on the target and everything. After I fire for a while, I start getting tired. Maybe I'm just getting more lazy than I started off with. But my NPA will change because my position will subtly change during the course of fire. So that I will notice I will have to move to get back on my center of my target. But since you're verifying your NPA every time, you will discover that and you'll move your feet when you need to. Also, once you do get up to your position and you dry fire before you start firing, and you get your NPA pretty much set, don't move your feet. Have everything set up so that you can reach it without moving your feet. Have your stool here so you can reach in and get things if you need to. Have your data book on your stool so you can just lean over and write on it, write in it if you want to, or have a shelf that you can put things on. But once I've spent that 3 minutes getting my position, I don't want to turn around and pick up something. So leave your feet there for the entire stage. Unless, when would you want to move them?
You done?
I'm sorry?
If you're done,
Well, yeah. What about before you're done?
you're trying to move your sights to be on your target with your natural point of aim.
Right. So during the stage, if your NPA changes, then you would move your feet to get back to your NPA. And that would be the only time I would move my feet during the match. During that stage, but that's only 25 minutes. Any questions? Who wants to go out and shoot now? Or do we want to talk about something? Go ahead. You got a question?
No, it's okay.
No?
So, yeah.
You want to go shoot?
Russ, one quick thing, what do you suggest as far as like, when you slide forward? Now, I watch people that reach over, I watch people that click inside, close the ball, you know, it's all these different techniques that you see. And I watch some people, and the way they do it, when they're up, they're ready, and then all of a sudden they're reaching over or they're pulling, and they pull themselves off target. Is that?
Okay, I'll give you my answer then, but out of full disclosure, I'll let Blake answer. I'm left-handed. I use my trigger finger. I just push up there and close the bolt. But there's people,
Most people can't do that.
most people can't do it. Most people are right-handed, and they'll either push up through the hand, charging handle and push. Now, some people who have match rifles have an attachment down here that they can put their finger into the trigger guard, and there's a lever that sticks down and close the bolt. And that's legal for match rifles, but I don't like it because you put your finger right across the trigger. How do you close it?
I use my thumb. I always, and again, everybody has a little different shot process, but in the offhand stage, you know, I'll load it, I'll make sure that I see the cartridge go into the chamber, and then I'll, you know, have it pointed in a safe direction, preferably down a little bit. You don't want to close it this way because then you have slam fires and stuff like that. But I always do keep it pointed a little bit low, and I just close it with my thumb. So I'm not really affecting my position because I'm not in position yet. When you get to the other stages, typically you're going to be closing the bolt after a reload. So, like from the sitting position, you know, I'll drop the mag, do that, and I just reach over and hit it with my thumb. You do see some people, like you were saying, they'll reach through in here and push it, but once I get the weight of the rifle on this arm here, I want to get the shot off as quickly as possible. So, again, I'm not doing anything. I'm not closing the bolt and then turning it and waving it all over the place. You know, I'm closing it, keeping it in a safe direction, and then I can go straight into it without having to really worry about, you know, affecting the position by doing that. But,
You did bring up a good point. You shouldn't be pointing it down. If the gun were to go off, it needs to go off. The bullet should impact at least 25 yards in front of you or 50 yards. But it shouldn't be pointed up in the air. It should impact somewhere between you and the berm, well away from your feet. And like you said, keep it not pointed too far down where you get slam fires. There's a lot of gadgets in Highpower. What are the important things about shooting well? The gadgets help you? No. Okay. But I'll show you a couple of gadgets. There's a single round follower that you can put in magazines. All magazines will lock the bolt open when it's empty. And when you're shooting slow fire, you can just leave it, you can put a magazine in, it'll lock the bolt open, but you can get little plastic things that make it feed a little bit better. Maybe they help, maybe they don't, I don't know. I've got one, I use it. I recommend it, but I don't know if it helps or not. It'll help in the loading to get the cartridge in the chamber correctly. Also, in standing, you got little shell boxes that you can put your ammunition in so that you can just have your ammunition in your coat pocket and just reach here to get it to load for the next shot. So you don't have to bend over. Also, they sell some of these that if you turn it over, the ammunition falls out. This one, you put the ammunition in there and it doesn't fall out. A lot of people see people drop ammo on the line. It's definitely bend over. The shot process, every time you shoot the shot, you need to do everything the same. Everything the same, 20 times over and over the same thing. Pick up the rifle the same, load it, get your support arm the same, load it, close the bolt, whichever way you do. The stock position in your shoulder affects where your head is on the stock. And where your head is affects where your eye is. And moving your eye behind the rear sight will change where the bullet will hit. So the head position, get that chipmunk cheeks, that's hard to say. Get that cheek pressure on the stock will ensure you get your eye behind the sight at the same place every time. And then the sight picture and the sight alignment will get the shot on the target. But you have to verify the stock goes into the shoulder the same spot every time. I've gone so far as put a white dot on my coat so that I knew where to put the stock. I've eventually that finally wore off, but I've done it enough, so I think I know where it goes in most of the time. But stock position is very important in all positions, especially at the prominent. But where you put the stock in your shoulder is very important. and where you have your support arm is very important. Questions? Okay. Anything else?
You mentioned going outside, if we want to look at all the positions in here.
No, we can do those outside. I didn't really do that stuff in here. Also, talk about equipment and gadgets and being organized. I've got a backpack, and this is my survival kit for today. I put my food in here, I put my water in here, I put my makeup in here, bug spray, sunscreen, chapstick, ear protection, things like that. Anything you need during the day, you're going to have the big matches, take it with you. I've got my pens and pencils and glasses cleaner, pens and pencils, ear protection, glasses, scorebook, anything that you need during the day, put it in your backpack and keep it with you, or your stool. I always like to have a towel in case I don't shoot where I can cry. Or wipe my hands when I sweat, especially in summertime. Ammunition goes in the bag, magazines goes in the stool, ammunition, magazines. Anything you use for the gun, I keep in the stool. Scorebook, I keep in the school. Rule book, I keep in my backpack. Keep a rule book with me all the time. Any questions? Who needs a backpack? Everybody have a backpack? Okay. I've only got two. We'll adjourn and go out to the range. Take your eye protection,